Hello students, welcome to 4th semester BA English Literature class. So in this class, we are going to look onto the paper Appreciating Fiction. So before moving to the paper, let's have a brief of Module 1. So this module introduces various aspects of fiction. This module tries to take the reading of fiction beyond the interest of leisure. So appreciating fiction in such a dimension, however, requires us to familiarize with a special vocabulary, a toolkit to open up the concealed pathways. So let's move on to the first section and the very first topic, that is, what is fiction? So in very banal term, fiction is literature in the form of prose, especially novels that describes imaginary events and people. Going to more depth, fiction is something more than its prose, more than its word skill, more than imagination. It is about vision and its ability to process life for revision and retrospection. So let's move to the very most important element of fiction, that is plot. So plot. Ever since Grecian antiquity, plot was seen as a major aspect. According to Aristotle, plot is the most important element of a tragedy. It's the plot that carries the style and vision of the writer. Modernist writers like Virginia Woolf, James Joyce and William Faulkner rejected plot and focused on the interiority of their characters. The next element is character. In fiction, authors create characters to take the narrative forward. So E.M. Forster speaks of two fundamental types of characters in his work, Aspects of the Novel. So the two fundamental characters are, one is flat characters and the other is round characters. So flat characters are two-dimensional, that they are relatively uncomplicated. On the other, round. So the other one is round characters. So on the other hand, round characters are complex figures with many different traits that evolve as the story proceeds. So here in character, we have seen two types of characters. One is flat characters, so they are uncomplicated. They do not have different dimensions. On the other hand, round characters, they are complex figures with different traits or with a complex terminology. So the distinction between dynamic characters and static characters is a similar one. Dynamic characters are those change over the course of the story, while static characters remain the same throughout. So from the term itself, one could assume static, that means something which is constant. So static characters remain the same throughout, from the beginning till the end, the same. But the dynamic characters, they change. So the next topic is, or the next element is atmosphere. So atmosphere is the all-pervading mood of a story. It is an abstract idea and is not quite as visible as a motive or a symbol. Atmosphere mainly emerges through description than action. Yes, when we read fiction, or when we watch film, we can understand that this atmosphere of a story, whatever it is, maybe fiction, maybe this what I said, film, whatever it is, atmosphere can be seen through description rather than action. So it is the climate, time of day or night, the ensemble of objects and the like that creates atmosphere. Atmosphere defines the hope, the distress, anxiety and thrill of the sequences in fiction. So the next element is narrative technique. So narrative technique is an umbrella term that holds other ideas such as literary device, figures of speech and verbal quip. So the individual element of different narrative techniques can be broken into 6 distinct categories. So the narrative, let me repeat, the bulk of the narrative technique can be divided or can be broken down into 6 distinct categories. They are: number 1, character; 2, perspective; 3, plot; 4, setting; 5, style; and 6, the final one, theme. So again, the next element is points of view. So points of view refers who is narrating the story. So a story can be told from first person point of view, second person point of view, and of course third person point of view. So in our reading experience, point of view is something I think is important. The other elements are equally important, but here whenever we read a fiction, so we are eager enough to know who is the speaker, who is narrating the story. Is it from the first person, second person, or third person? So let's see. First person point of view. Here the main character is telling the story. So readers could see words like I, me, or we. So it's commonly used for narratives and autobiographies. So second person point of view. Here the writer has the narrator speaking to the reader. Words like you, your, and yours are used here. The common usage of this point of view are direction, business writing, technical writing, song, lyrics, speeches, and advertising. So next is third person point of view. Here the external narrator is telling the story. This can be similar or this can be singular or plural or gender specific or gender neutral. So words like he, she, it, or they are used here. Next topic we are going to see is differences between long and short fiction. So both long and short fiction are narrative fiction written in prose. So long fiction is also called novels. So the differences between a short story and a novel is in its length. So we all know that short story, from the name itself it is evident that short story is rather smaller than a novel. So it could be read in a single sitting. So a short story is shorter than a novel and can be read in a single sitting. So short story ranges from 1,500 words to 30,000 words, whereas novels even begins or starts from 50,000 words. So there are other points of differences between them. So short fiction contain one basic plot, whereas novels contain, and usually it has many subplots and a complex main plot. So short fiction does not have comprehensive characterization. It focuses on one or two characters. On the other hand, novels allow a host of multiple characters. So finally, short story or short fiction cover a very shorter period of time. So the novels on the other covers a very long period. So we all know that most of us are interested in reading short stories, is it, or short fiction, because we are always eager to know the climax of the story in reading in a single sitting. That's it. So here we have seen the main or the major differences between a short fiction and novel. So let's see a very important element of fiction, that is genre. So different types of fiction. So let's see what a genre means. So a genre is a term that we generally use to refer to a certain variety of literature. So now let's see some acknowledged forms of fiction, some acknowledged genres in fiction. Now we are moving to different genres of fiction. The first one being adventure novels. So an adventure novel is any story that puts the protagonist in physical danger. So it is characterized by thrilling encounters and courageous and daring feats. So it is fast paced, the tension mounting as the novel progresses. So there is usually a climax that offers relief to the reader. So the next one we are going to see is science fiction. So this genre incorporates any story that is set in the near future. So the story features scientific ideas and advanced technological concepts. So here the writers build new worlds and use genre-specific words. Here the setting defines the plot. So next we are moving to fantasy. So these stories deal with kingdoms as opposed to science fictions. So myths, otherworldly magic-based concepts and ideas characterize these kinds of fiction. So when we all remember, or we all were eager once, when we were children, we were all eager to listen to those stories which belong to this genre, that is fantasy. So next is speculative fiction. So these stories are created in worlds unlike our real world in certain important way. This genre usually overlaps one or more of the following: scientific fiction, fantasy fiction, horror fiction, supernatural fiction, superhero fiction, utopian and as well as dystopian fiction, then apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic fiction, and alternative history. the next one being romance. So these stories are about romantic relationship between two people. So it is characterized by sensual tension, desire and idealism. There are many subgenres including paranormal, historical, contemporary, category, fantasy and gothic. So as students of literature, we all are very much familiar about the genre romance. We all are more familiar about the romantic plays written by William Shakespeare. So again, suspense, thriller. So here a character in jeopardy dominates these stories. So this genre involves pursuit and escape. There are one or more dark characters that the protagonist must escape or fight against. So the threats to the protagonist may be either physical or psychological or can be both. Next is young adult. So these are usually coming age stories and often cross into the genre of fantasy, science fiction, etc. So again we are going to see to horror, paranormal or ghost. So these are high-pitched, scary stories involving pursuit and escape. So the protagonist must overcome supernatural or demonic beings. This genre also is the most important one which all of us must have encountered during our childhood days. So again the next one is mystery or crime. Here the central issue is a question that must be answered and an identity that should be revealed. So again next topic is historical. So these fictional stories take place against factual historical backdrops. Important historical figures are portrayed as fictional characters. So historic romance is a subgenre that involves a conflicted love relationship in a factual historic setting. So the next one is westerns. So these are books which specifically set in the old American West. So the plot lines of this genre includes survival, romance and adventures with characters of the time. The next topic we are dealing is family saga. So this genre is about an ongoing story of two or more generations of a family. So the plot revolves around things like businesses, acquisition, properties, adventures, etc. So the next topic is women's fiction. So these plot lines are characterized by female characters who face challenges, difficulties and crises that have a direct relationship to gender. So this may be inclusive of women's conflict with man, though not limited to that. It can include conflict with things like the economy, family, society, art, politics and religion. So then next, magic realism. So magical events are part of ordinary life. So the characters do not see themselves as abnormal or unusual. So the best or the foremost example of this is 100 Years of Solitude. So in literature we could see many of the authors using the technique of magic realism. In Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the handsomest drowned man, there in that short story also one could see the use of magic realism by the author. Not only these two works, there are so many other works where author utilized this technique. Next is literary fiction. So this genre focuses on the human condition and it is more concerned with the inner lives of characters. So here themes are more prominent than plot. Then next is writing for children. So we all are so much aware of writing for children or children's literature, because once when we were children we must have read those works. So children's literature is not confined to fiction. Here the emphasis is on the audience, who are obviously children. So the language tones down in this genre. Dark themes are also avoided in children's literature. So it is a typical kind of literature which is deviant or which deviates from the other genre, because children's literature has to be in a mild nature. It should avoid dark themes, conflicts, struggles, fights, and it should also cater to the needs and to the psyche of children. Okay, then this is all about module 1.